Greetings, Heavy Metallurgy. My name is Alan, and I'm here today to review not one, but two killer death metal releases coming out here in the month of June. Stay tuned to find out which two they are. All right, folks, as promised, today it's the double A-sided review. Rather than reviewing one or the other, or doing one of these albums and then a call to arms for the other, I felt like they're both really, really good and deserve their share of the spotlight. So we're billing this as the double A-side review. First up, we are talking about a new project called Skjolden. This is a one-man project being done by Carl Skildum, who many of you will know from projects such as Majesties, Inexorum, and Antiverse. Carl plays a prominent role in all of those projects, and this is kind of a one-man show for him. As he stated in the bio, he had some time in between other projects, and his collaborators in other bands were also already doing other things, so he felt like, what should I do? Why not just make my own one-man project and give that a spin? And that is what Skjolden is all about. The band is named for the town in Norway where Carl's relatives come from, kind of tracing his ancestry back, so kind of a neat nod there to his own personal history. The album is called Insouciant Metaphysical Grandeur, and it's releasing June 20th. This is an independent release, and it's a digital-only release for the time being. It's going to be available on Bandcamp and other major platforms for accessing MP3s, but there's not a physical release for this just yet, at least. Nevertheless, this is a really strong project, and it definitely showcases some of Carl's strengths. If you're familiar with his other work, you'll know, first off, Carl's a very strong vocalist. He tends to have a slightly dry and raspy, but very forceful and powerful delivery. It's fairly unique, and I've always liked his approach to singing. It always manages to have that kind of dry, ancient, and cryptic sound, but be very powerful at the same time. It never feels like tired or wallowing in nihilism. No, it's always got, a very good, powerful, forward-driving approach to it. Other trademark for a lot of Carl's projects is the excellent guitar work. Even in its most aggressive parts, Carl always has a really well-developed sense of melody that's woven throughout all of the guitar work, and both of these traits are very much present in the songs on Skjolden's debut album. The album takes off right away with the opening track, which is In Resplendent Obscurity, and it showcases the band operating in a vein that is similar to Inexorum's excellent material. But even in the bio stuff, Carl refers to this project as maybe sort of like Inexorum's younger, sort of more mischievous sibling. In terms of more mischievous, the way I'm interpreting that based on the quality of the music is that the Skjolden songs have a slightly darker, a little more underground vibe to them, a little rawer and rougher around the edges, which makes sense since this is a one-man project. Carl's handling pretty much everything, so that, it doesn't have quite as much ornamentation on it as when he's collaborating with other musicians. Nevertheless, it still has, again, some of those trademark signature styles that you would associate with Inexorum. A really well-balanced mix of black and death metal approach. I always like Carl's approach to these things because it's not just death metal with blackened vocals. It's not just, thrashy death metal with, screechy vocals or something. No, the styles are really nicely blended and come out, with a pretty unique sound. Skjolden does have a little bit less of the melodic death metal as compared to some of Carl's other projects. Majesties and Inexorum play into the sort of classic dark tranquility and in flames techniques more so than what you're hearing on Skjolden. Those things are still present here, as you can hear on several tracks, including the title track. So yes, Carl's still definitely utilizing his love for melodic death metal here. It's just maybe toned down slightly compared to some of the other projects. Something that is turned up a bit on Skjolden is the use of keyboards. Carl's no stranger to using these to good effect in some of his other bands, but they're a little more prominent here and there throughout the tracks on Skjolden. And they add a nice effect. Since the guitars aren't as loud or dominating in this project, it opens up some space for the keyboards to take a little more stronger role in the music. The album's very consistent. It's only about 35 minutes, 7 tracks. But yeah, you've got quality stuff from start to finish. Personal standout tracks are the title track, which is a little less forceful and driving than the opening two numbers. So it manages to open up and develop really nicely. And the other standout track for me is Can't Kill My Love, which is not a song title you typically would expect coming from, sort of a melodic blackened death metal project, but it's an excellent song that kind of shows off all of Carl's strengths as a songwriter and a musician. Summary on this particular album. If you are a fan of Carl's other projects, if you enjoy melodic blackened death metal, or you just like really strong musicianship in this particular style, I definitely recommend checking out Insouciant Metaphysical Grandeur. Again, it's going to be available on digital platforms such as Bandcamp June 20th. We'll have a link for at least the Bandcamp platform in the comments down below, but you'll be able to find it on other platforms as well. The album also has some excellent Erskine cover art to it, so you've got something to spruce up the download when you're checking out those tracks. All right, now it's time to check out the flip side on our double A side review attack. This is a death metal band from West Java called Incinerated. This is their second album that's about to be released on June 30th. It is titled The Epitome of Transgression and is being released by Black Seed Productions. Now, this is not Incinerated's first album. They did release an EP and a full length previously in 2017 and 2020, respectively. I've heard those releases. I haven't spent a lot of time with them. Both of them are pretty good and showcase the band working in a pretty raw, chaotic style of blackened death metal. It's pretty well done, but it wasn't something that really drew me back for repeat listens over and over. On the new album, the band is definitely heading out into new sonic territory. The lineup has remained constant, but they are definitely altering their sound. With the Epitome of Transgression, you can hear right away on the opening intro track that this is not going to be just sort of a raw, blasphemous attack from start to finish. So yeah, right from the bat with this introductory track, you hear the band trying different things. There's some, quick snaps of sort of, a martial sounding snare, but there's a stronger pounding sound in the background too that almost lends an industrial tinge to thing. Then there are massive horns. It sounds like they're summoning some great rough beast. Its hour come round at last to begin slouching its way towards Bethlehem or something. It's a very imposing and sort of symphonic, bombastic opening without being overdone. On my first listen, I kind of knew right away that this was going to be an interesting ride, and indeed it is. The band has sort of avoided repeating the raw, chaotic style of their previous two releases, and this time they're developing something that has a stronger progressive and an almost technical aspect to it, but without ever sounding overly wanky, pretentious, or getting, just lost in their own, greatness and technicality. For one thing, the album still has a very arcane and ancient feel to it. And a big part of this is the vocal production. The vocals have a production style where they sound like they are being recorded a bit far away. So it's a little bit muffled sounding in a way, but it doesn't have the stereotypical claustrophobic, cavernous, old school death metal production that, let's be honest, is way, way overdone in recent years. On this release, Incinerated's production has the kind of cavernous aspect where it sounds very open and echoey. It's like the vocals are coming down to you, echoing through the cosmos where they originated from some dark star millennia ago and are just now reaching human eardrums. It's a really cool effect and suits the music very, very well. Another thing that stands out pretty quickly with Incinerated's music on this album is the drumming. It is a very lively and active performance on the drums. There's constantly quick fills and patterns moving the music along and keeping things going, which is important because the tracks on this album are very long. Other than the 1 minute intro, you really only have like three main songs. The opener, Deciphering the Signs of Salvation, is over 12 minutes. Then you have a pair of 9 minute tracks separated by a 3.5 minute instrumental. So there's definitely a risk here where these songs could bog down, drag out, and just become a big jumbled mess. But the percussion plays a huge role in keeping things moving along. Even in the 12+ minute opener, I never feel like my attention is waning or that I'm distracted with something else. The song keeps me engaged and wanting to see where it's going to go next, which is a huge plus. Not a lot of bands can do that with an opening track so long. So yeah, the fact that the drumming is able to help propel the songs along quite well actually opens up space that allows the guitars to take a different approach, such that they're able to produce a lot of echoey notes that can kind of hang there in space. The guitars don't need to be extremely busy because the percussion is taking care of that. And so the guitars are able to add a lot of texture and atmosphere with a less is more approach. A few notes here that are sustained, echo, reverb, helps add a lot of atmosphere to the music, while this kind of quick, nimble drumming ensures that you're never just drifting around in sort of, a shoegaze miasma. There's none of that whatsoever. And the production on all the instrumentation is relatively clean. Again, there's sort of, a muffled sense to parts of it where it actually works in its favor, giving it that kind of arcane patina that you're listening to something truly ancient or hermetic in nature, but everything is at the same time clear and you know what they're trying to do here. The guitar approach combined with the drums makes for a really interesting combination and at times creates an almost post-punk sort of vibe where the songs can move in different directions, always be engaged. But again, having these more sparse guitar parts here and there adds, again, a lot of that ambience that you might associate with some of the better, moodier post-punk kind of bands from the late 70s and early 80s. Yeah, even that 3+ minute instrumental track in the middle of the album, Confronting an Unfolding Mana, shows interesting dynamics at work, starting with sort of a scratchy, uneasy series of guitar notes, a bit unlike other things featured on this album. So even that track makes for an engaging listen, and gives you, a little bit of a sense of calm before the closing track roars to life. This band is not afraid to speed up, add in the occasional blast, or pick up the pace from time to time. This album doesn't just drift along quietly in the void. It knows how to roar and move forward rapidly when needed, but it also knows how to make use of space, of quiet, and disquiet to create really compelling set of songs that, despite the long run times for each individual track, are always doing something interesting. So again, 5 tracks, but only 3 real songs. But the 3 real songs are all very long, and the intro and the instrumental are also very interesting pieces of music too. So the total runtime only comes in at about 35 minutes, which I think works to the album's advantage. This is something of a challenging listen. You don't absorb this all at once. It took me several spins before I started to kind of wrap my head around what the band was doing and how the different parts were working together. But because it's only a little over half an hour in length, it doesn't wear you out. This isn't like listening to Gorguts Obscura, where magnificent as it is, by the time you hit that 60-minute mark, you need to take a step away for a while. This is a complex, fascinating listen that you can immediately hit replay on and dive right back into this sort of, dark, mysterious, but compelling cosmos that Incinerated has developed. I do wonder how this album is going to go over with the band's established fan base. It is a pretty big change in direction, and if some people were keeping up with Incinerated for that more straightforward, raw, linear type of attack, this album may not sit well with those fans. They may feel like this is something like, a horrendous moment where, horrendous starts it as, of course, kind of, a death-inspired death metal project, and then rapidly started incorporating more elements that took them out of that orbit. I feel like Incinerate is doing something a bit similar here, and they're doing it extremely well. Color me very impressed with this particular release. The band could stay in this particular style and make more amazing music in the future. This project also, with some of the signs they show here, could, like Horrendous, kind of drift further and further out into progressive death metal territory. But at least for the Epitome of Transgression, they are still very well grounded in a death metal underground sound. Touches of it feel a bit blackened, touches of it feel a bit progressive. All of it feels, very underground and very arcane. In that regard, it reminds me a bit of the Ancient Death album, Ego Dissolution, that came out earlier this year to a lot of hype and fanfare. One of the things that made Ancient Death really special was that the album had those kind of progressive tendencies to it, but they never allowed that to overtake the atmosphere and the darkness that made it a compelling death metal album. And I think Incinerated has done a very similar balancing act here. Different approach in terms of the technical details, but yes, this still feels like one of those dusty, long-lost death metal secrets, but has a lot of other things going on once you get into it and delve into the mysteries within. So that is going to do it for this review. 2 great releases for you to check out. You've got June 20th, Skjolden will be available digitally on multiple platforms, and June 30th, Incinerated's The Epitome of Transgression will be available from Black Seed Productions. Hope you enjoy both of these. Please consider checking these bands out. They may not be, huge name bands that everybody knows and is anticipating, but they're excellent releases, and it's always great to give some of these newer up-and-coming acts some support. Purchase their stuff, give them likes on their social media, keep up with them. They both are releasing some really killer music this month for you. That's going to do it for now. So until next time, everybody take care. And as always, keep banging your head.